Okay, hello everyone who has found me here on the internet. Let me share my screen. Share screen right here. Here we go. Perfect. So I'm so glad that you were able to find me here. My name's Christine, and I'm a fifth year PhD candidate at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. Now, I presented this talk to grad students from the University of Toronto and had hoped to present this talk at the Grad School Success Summit, but there were some issues with scheduling. So I'm taking the time today to tape this presentation, which is more of a informal talk, to share with those who had signed up for the summit and weren't able to see me talk. But this way, I'll be able to post this talk and share it with hopefully more students who would like to talk and discuss academia and parenthood. So, however you found this talk, I'm glad you're here. It really is meant to be more of a discussion. Obviously, that is hard with one person right now. So please participate in the comments below, and I'll try my best to respond to everyone there. Or you can contact me on the email addresses that are on the screen, and I can respond to you there as well. So academia and parenthood is not my area of expertise. It's not my PhD area of focus. It's just more of an interest to me as I'm a new mom. I'm currently on maternity leave and I'm finishing my PhD. So I briefly am going to touch on literature in this area within this talk, but again, it's more of a discussion and advocacy conversation. So I've titled this talk Academia and Parenthood, Work-Life Balance as a question to push back against the notion of balance and rather focus on bringing up more life into both of these areas as they overlap so much with each other. So what to expect? I'll try and keep this presentation short as I know everyone who is watching this is likely very busy. I'll begin by sharing a bit more about myself, and then we'll get into the bread and butter of the talk, which is on academia and parenthood. And lastly, we'll talk about some strategies that will hopefully help you or take you, give you something to walk away with from this talk. But before we begin, I just want to put a disclaimer here. This isn't a presentation on productivity or how to be a more productive parent. I think it's beneficial for us to take a pause to really reflect on what success means to us. And that will look differently for everyone. It's not necessarily about how much one can accomplish, but rather what does success look like for you. I myself have faced some difficult mental health challenges in the past because of overwork during my PhD, and a lot of the advocacy work that I do stands up and works against the culture of overwork. So before I get into any of the details, I just want to remind you that your worth is always more important than your work. So please make sure to put yourself first, especially as you take a minute to sort of reflect on that definition of success and what that means for you. What I do hope you take away from this presentation is for all of us to work together to advocate for structural change when it comes to parenthood and academia. And hopefully, in the meantime, we can build community to support each other along the way. So who am I? I'm a straight cis Italian woman who's a wife, mother, daughter, PhD candidate, advocate, ally, and coffee lover who lives in Toronto, Canada. I share this here to emphasize that this presentation is very much coming from my own lived experience as a woman in a heterosexual relationship. And again, I emphasize that community here is so important because we need more voices. We need to hear from more folks who want to or have family in grad school, folks who are Black, Indigenous, have different abilities across different intersects. Hearing these perspectives will only continue to make academia more accessible and successful for everyone. And I also want to state here and just say what a privilege it has been for me to become a mother and a parent. I know not everyone has or is able to get this opportunity, or some face a very difficult road and challenge to get here. So if that is what you're going through right now, I just want you to know that my thoughts and my heart goes out to you during this time. So just a little bit more about me and where I'm at in my PhD journey. I started my PhD in 2017, and at the same time, I decided to start a blog about my experience in my program. My blog is called Scholar Culture. I had no idea what a PhD entailed before I got into the program, and so I was looking for a more contemporary voice online about academia and about the challenges and just more about the PhD in general. Voices were pretty limited, and so this is what motivated me to share my voice. So I started Scholar Culture 5 years ago now, and with almost 20,000 followers online, we have built a community of academics sharing experiences. And over the years, I've posted on Instagram and to the blog. And for me, Scholar Culture has become a site that understands a scholar's life doesn't just happen during work hours. And Scholar Culture invites the Academy to pay attention to a scholar's life as a holistic experience. It provides a space to motivate and inspire scholars to bring life into their academic lifestyle. So my PhD program is within the social work department, and I also have a specialization in political economy. Everyone's program was going to look a little bit differently, but for me, I had 2 years of coursework. During these 2 years, I was also a part of 3 major research projects on unpaid work in long-term care, age friendliness internationally, as well as 2S LGBTQ workers' safety. 4 years later, in 2021, I finished my data collection for my own thesis research, which is within researching nonprofit workers' experiences during the pandemic in Ontario. So the nonprofit social service sector has become really impacted, just like many other sectors, due to the pandemic. But what's different about this sector is that it's already really heavily relied on precariously employed, low wage, and volunteer labor force of mostly women, and includes many racialized and immigrant workers. So my research asks, how have the working conditions for these workers changed or shifted during the pandemic, and how are workers adapting to these changes? So I take a feminist political economy lens in everything I do, helping to put a spotlight on inequalities in work and labor, both paid and unpaid. And I guess the last thing to share is my teaching experience. So I've also taught 4 courses within the social work department on community and international development, research methods, and research statistics. As of 2022, I'm currently on maternity leave for the year, and I'll be hopefully returning in 2023 for my final year of my PhD. I am extremely grateful to have received a SSHRC scholarship for these last 2 years of my PhD. So this is a more prestigious scholarship in Canada, which also provides paid maternity leave for a whole year. So without that scholarship, I wouldn't have been able to take this much time off, and I definitely wouldn't be in the same financial position as I am without it. And although the financial support is not enough, it does allow me to be able to just relax a bit and enjoy this time with now my almost 7-month-old son, Luca. Requirements of my mat leave all actually state that I shouldn't be working, but I'm open to sharing about what I am currently up to and about pushing back against these types of requirements, as I want to be writing during this time. And I think that if that is something that you want to be doing, you should be able to do that. So I emphasize that word want because this is going to look differently for everyone, depending on, the number of children you do have or different circumstances, which is why my disclaimer earlier was really important for me. I don't think I necessarily need to be doing work right now, but it is something that I want to do. And I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do that sometimes. But I am finding it very difficult to find the time to squeeze work in during my days, because it takes a lot of time to just keep this little human alive. So my partner and I are coming up with different ideas on how I can make that happen, as childcare is also extremely expensive. So where does this take me? I'm not exactly sure where the future will lead me. I'm aiming for a job in academia. I'm open to a postdoc in between. I'm hoping to have more children. But what I'm clear on is my ultimate goal. As you may have deciphered from the work that I do, there's one thing in common with my research, scholar culture, and my time as a mother, and that's advocating for improved working conditions, specifically in the care sector, and for those who are often marginalized populations across gender, class, ethnicity, ability, and sexual identity. So my main goal, and I believe through academia, research, and with the reach of social media, there's an opportunity for change and in improving working conditions within the care sector and academia. But enough about me. Let's get into why you likely came here for this chat, to discuss academia and parenthood. So I wrote a blog post on 10 reasons why a PhD is a lot like parenthood, which I thought would be a fun and lighthearted way to start off this section before getting into some of the more heavy stuff. And I think some of you will be able to relate to this. So here they are. Number 1, you have no idea what you are doing, but yet you keep going. 2, there are days where you feel like you have done nothing, but you've worked so damn hard. 3, you enjoy it, but you don't have any energy left to show it. Number 4, you put your all into it and rarely get rewarded. Number 5, there's a whole community behind you going through the same thing, but it's still a lonely road. Number 6, comparison is so easy, but everyone's path looks very different. Number 7, there's no rule book or guide. Number 8, most people accept others in your shoes, wonder what it is you do all day that keeps you so busy. Number 9, asking for help can be hard, but burnout is real, so take breaks even if you have no time for them. And finally, it's an exhausting road, but there are moments that are just magic and make it all worth it. So let's begin by talking about work-life balance. I'm not really a big fan of this concept, and I try to avoid using this phrase. My supervisor, Dr. Susan Bradley, says that thinking about balance actually sets us women up for failure. And another one of my mentors, Dr. Pat Armstrong, once said, there's work in our lives and life in our work. These pieces are not that separate, and the pandemic has certainly highlighted this overlap. One of the members in the scholar culture community mentioned using the word harmony in place of balance, and that really resonated with me. So what I want to talk about is the reality of academia and parenthood, but also some strategies on how to create more harmony and to bring more life into this type of lifestyle. So what's the current context of parenthood in academia? Well, first of all, women's representation among faculty is on the rise. Women were 41% full-time academic teaching staff at Canadian universities in 2018 to 19. 28 were professors, 44% were associate professors, and 50 assistant professors. Women still earn less than men at all ranks, especially full professors. Researchers have long studied the gender pay gap. However, new research by Gallen reveals that 2/3 of the pay gap can be explained by a productivity gap between men and women that is driven by motherhood. Prior to motherhood, women are actually more productive than men, and their productivity climbs again as their children age to equal that of men. However, for women who choose to have children, the fall off in workplace production is enough to impact their pay and possibly the earnings of younger women whom employers assume will have children as well. Specifically in the academic labor market, there's also the reality and higher stumbling blocks in front of women than men because of the timing between tenure clocks and biological clocks. The book Professor Mommy by Connolly and Godsey also points out that yes, a path towards academia may seem appealing due to flexibility, but the reality is that a flexible schedule and the lower pay means that if in a heterosexual relationship, women are stuck with more of the unpaid work, which they describe as the flexibility trap. Another study, this one by James Bourgault, Goutant, and Dukai, explained that in Canada, women are earning an increasing number of doctoral degrees, yet they are less likely to secure a tenure track position. They capture the range of challenges that mothers encounter in relation to care on the tenure track, namely the fear of postpartum academic erasure, the mummy tenure track and care choices, and research while caring. These studies that I've drawn on are mostly discussing barriers women face, but I'd be remiss to add here that there are, of course, other intersections of race and class, which create even further barriers for those parents in academia. We've definitely seen more than ever before how work and life intersect and how they're not separate during the COVID-19 pandemic. A recent article by Hillier discusses motherhood in academia during the pandemic, analyzing the experiences of grad student moms from a Southwestern Ontario University campus, and reveals 6 key themes on the intersection of work and family, embodied experiences of pregnancy, mentoring and network opportunities, inconsistencies between institutional and program policies, departmental support, and an overall level of satisfaction in being a mother during graduate studies. The study shows that inconsistencies and inadequacies of institutional and structural supports contributed to a decreased sense of belonging and comfortability on campus, and reinforced their experiences of being excluded and regarded as outsiders. The study suggests that the barriers and challenges academic mothers encounter are deeply rooted in systems of oppression, which rely heavily on the unpaid labor of women. And of course, the pandemic has only intensified these challenges. I mentioned these challenges not to frighten or scare anyone who is thinking about parenthood in academia. So hopefully this section can be a little bit more uplifting, and I'll be mentioning some takeaway strategies for those who are hoping to go down this route, or those who are currently in this path for themselves. So to me, the issue is structural. Universities must address the challenges, especially since the pandemic, and restore commitments to advancing improved equity, diversity, and inclusion policies and practices. Of course, the reality of this differs from department to department and university to university across countries. At least from my experience, there isn't proper financial support, and this is relevant whether you're a parent or not, as a grad student or a PhD student, but even more so for parental or maternity leave. You shouldn't need a prestigious award in order to get a paid leave. And if you do get a paid leave, you should have the option to continue to work if that is what you choose to do. There should be proper support, financial and mental and physical, in order to pursue a life in academia, whether it be in grad school, your PhD, as a contract instructor, assistant professor, or another rank. To me, there are three main priorities that could help parents in academia more. The first is more financial support in grad school and for parental support. The second is for more mental health support in grad school and for parents postpartum. And lastly, to encourage, seek out, or to provide support if you are in that type of role as a supervisor to students who hope to pursue academia and parenthood. There's a big role to be played from tenured faculty members to push institutions towards much needed structural change. But some more micro general strategies, however, in the meantime, to bring more life into our chosen academia and parenthood lifestyles would be, first, to create a separate work environment if possible. This separation, that doesn't have children's toys involved or in the way, creates a nice, fresh space for you to be able to switch modes. And I recommend having that ready and clear and organized so that whenever you do have the opportunity, you can jump into that that different mode. Setting time aside to budget. Childcare is very expensive, but to have that uninterrupted writing time is really important. So get clear on what you need each month and adjust your budget to meet those needs. One month it might be childcare, and the next it might be money towards getting groceries delivered or spending the time going to go get them in store another month. You may not be able to afford any of this, but sitting down and adjusting a budget month to month has helped me be able to prioritize what it is that month that I'm going to be able to focus on. So one month I may be not able to do so much writing, whereas the next I am. Being okay with good enough. Not everything needs to be 100%. Some things aren't as important as others, and that's okay. Figure out what are perhaps some low-hanging fruit and get those things done that don't require your full effort on the days that are busier or you don't have that childcare. And lastly, brain dumping really helps me. I love the Notes app in my phone. Whenever something comes to my head throughout the day, it goes on that Notes app. And at the end of the day, I organize my thoughts. This way, I'm not trying to remember everything throughout the day as it comes into my head. And my to-do list the next day is always organized and ready to go. And I don't have to spend my limited quiet time on organizing what I want to do. Now, I could do a whole other presentation on time management strategies, but I just wanted to share a few of these that are helping me here. Obviously, life ebbs and flows, and some months certain strategies work for us and others, they no longer serve us. So I thought I'd share some of my current go-to strategies with my 7th-month-old as I'm on maternity leave and trying to write. Here are some of the strategies that I am loving. The first is what I'm calling the reset. So lately, my thoughts are running 1,000,000 miles a minute, and I quickly turn my negative. If something goes wrong, I quickly turn to negative thoughts. And then all of a sudden, that could impact my whole day. So what is helping me is to have a reset. So the strategy here is to pick out a location or something that I do often throughout my day as a landmark of sorts. So for me, I use washing my hands. So automatically, anytime I wash my hands, I take a moment to pause and breathe and reset. I remind myself to turn to my negative thoughts into positive ones, or at least more manageable ones, and reset in that moment. It's a similar strategy to, a new day is a fresh start, but I often don't have time to wait a whole day in order to reset. So the beautiful thing is that at any moment we can reset and we can begin again. The next strategy is a walk and reflect. Right now, my little one loves walks. And so it's a time when I can sort of have a second to myself as he's loving, looking and exploring outside. Um, so this gives me, usually around 30 minutes to just have some peaceful, quiet time for myself. And I try and make the most out of it. So, other advice you might get is audiobooks or podcasts. And yes, that's great. But sometimes I just don't want to overload myself with more information. I actually believe that most of what we need to know is already inside of us. So instead, I'll think about a reflective question before I go on my walk. So this could be related to my research or not, but it's usually reflective. So it gives me the opportunity to um, reflect or dream. So, for example, I may have the question of what has worked well for me for this past month, what didn't, and what do I want to change. And then for those 30 minutes, I'll be thinking about and reflecting on what are some of the things I want to keep going into the month ahead, and what are some things I want to let go of. So, um, anytime your thoughts may wander when you're on your walk, you can always bring yourself back to that question. So that's more of a reflection question, but you could also take, a question that you have related to your writing or your research that you're working on and sort of reflect during that time as well. And then lastly, Pomodoro nap time. So if you follow me on social media, you know that I love the Pomodoro technique, which is to work within 25 minutes and then take a break for 5 minutes. So you set a timer and then you work for 25 minutes straight, and then you can take your 5 minute break. So for me, I can do this during my baby's naps. And what I really have to focus on here is just putting aside anything else that needs to get done. The cleaning can wait, the laundry can wait. I just sit down and I work. But I also take that, little break for myself. So I found that the Pomodoro technique has still continued to work well for me into motherhood. But I also think that if what you need is a 25-minute nap instead of working or writing, and what you need is that Pomodoro nap for yourself, then I say take that too. So before I end this presentation, I wanted to touch on one of the most frequently asked questions that I get, which is when is the best time to start a family in academia? Another recent blog post of mine discusses my experience during pregnancy and going through my PhD. And I included my response to this frequently asked question. Now, I don't have a definite answer for you. I don't think that there is a best time to necessarily start a family. I think the best time is when the best time is for you. So most people, and I might be one of them, may say that having a baby during a PhD is not the best time. In some ways, it was a great time for it. I was able to rest when I needed to. If I had to be at a 9 to 5 job every day, I'm not sure I would have been able to make that happen. And I had a really rough pregnancy in terms of sickness. So I was grateful for that. But it's hard to say that any other time would be a better time because I haven't experienced that. Those other phases yet and during postdoc or pre-tenure. I think any stage will present its own challenges, but also have its own benefits. So it's really up to you to weigh the pros and cons of these and decide what's right for you and your family. But reflecting on those three things that I had mentioned previously, the financial support, the mental health support, and supervision and management support, I think if you focus on those three things, that can help you decipher if you have that type of support lined up for you and if it could be an option for you. And I think having those types of supports will at least support you better through that time. And another piece of that is just letting go of control or planning for the best time, being okay with the unknown, because that's something that you're going to have to get comfortable with as you journey into parenthood. So I hope my overall message here has become clear. It's not about balance. It's about creating more life, creating more joy, creating more harmony. I'm not going to say that life as a parent in academia will get easier. I don't know that it will. And I'm not sure what the rest of my academic journey will look like, or the rest of my motherhood journey will look like. Defending my thesis, navigating the job market, and hopefully having more children. But I am starting to feel more comfortable with not having a set plan for my life and letting things happen. But what I do know is that in order to achieve the type of success that each of us want, whatever that looks like for you, we need to continuously work together to advocate for structural change, especially those with more power and higher positions. And in the meantime, building community to support each other and sharing strategies along the way. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to this talk. I'm happy to field any questions that you may have in the comments below. I would also just love to hear from you and your experience. What do you think is needed in academia and parenthood? What is needed structurally? What are your current go-to strategies to overcome some of the unique challenges that parents in academia face? Let's continue to build community here. My contact information is again on the screen. You can get a hold of me on Instagram at Scholar Culture, on my blog at www.scholarculture.com, or my 2 email addresses provided there as well. And I'm happy to have conversations there. So thank you again. Here are some of the references that I mentioned today. And I hope that we'll be in touch, and I wish you all the best. Take care.